Welcome back to Bending the Narrative. Each week, we dive into Netflix's Avatar: The Last Airbender live action series. While you can find our overall thoughts on the season in our very first episode, throughout book one, we will be discussing in further detail how each episode compares to its live action version. So, Kate, let's start with you. What are your thoughts here?
I mean, I feel like with the Blue Spirit, they just copied it scene for scene, basically.
Kind of, yeah.
They copied the gist of it,
Yeah.
which I think works. I mean, it's good, so why not copy it for the
Yeah.
fame?
Yeah.
um, what I didn't like was how they incorporated it in the story. They started off. I remember in the live action, they started off with this is Aang going to the Fire Sage Temple. He gets captured by June, who we'll meet later, and then he gets kidnapped by Zuko.
Hmm.
And then Zhao takes Aang, and
Hmm.
then that's why Zuko becomes the Blue Spirit.
Yeah.
Um, Pretty close to
It
what happened, but
it like makes it's the episode, the live action episode is so weird because a lot like because even if you capture like scene for scene as much as you can the animation to the live action, like the runtime doesn't match up, obviously.
yeah.
The animation is 22-23 minutes, and they have like 50-ish 55-minute episodes for the live action, so they had to like
Yeah.
figure out what the other half of it would be, because like obviously the Blue Spirit is one of the episodes that you're going to keep for the adaptation, because as we
Hmm.
discussed at the top, like it's one of the biggest episodes of the series.
It's so
um
iconic. Yeah.
yeah, and so they had to figure out how to do the like fill the other half of it, and they ended up using it, which like it makes sense to accompany it with like Zuko's origin essentially, and like making it a really Zuko, like this is in the live action,
Centered
this is where we
episode.
get most of his stuff from the storm, which we talked about previously. Like we get the Agni Kai, and we get the this is where they do bring in the, which we already talked about, but the 41st division like revelation, which is super
Hmm.
good. Like that's a great thing, but like that's kind of how they build out the rest of the runtime for the episode, which again, it does like I could see how that works and why they made that decision. And then the main difference, they do still have like Katara and Sokka being sick. It's just in this version they're
They're in the
trapped.
spirit world, right? Yeah,
Yeah,
they're
they're
trapped in the
trapped in the
spirit world.
spirit world still, and so like Aang is trying to figure out how to save that, and that's why he goes to Roku and stuff, and that's how he gets captured. um
Hmm.
so like they kept the big, like you have Katara and Sokka being sick still, you have Aang needing to rescue them, you have Aang getting captured and put in prison, and then you have Zuko going to save them.
Hmm.
And so like I'm not like I think it works for the most part. It's just it's what they changed like in relation to the other stuff that makes
To
it
the
kind
other
of
stuff, it's
weird.
outside of that section. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like the Blue Spirit stuff they did pretty faithfully. Like they got the big hits there.
They
They
got the
got
bamboo stuff. They got them fighting together. They got the Dao swords, which was freaking awesome.
Yeah, like they
Um,
got they got all of that. I'd say the one thing I guess that kind of changes is we don't really get like the Blue Spirit prior to Aang being captured, like his,
hmm.
because like you could tell at the beginning of the episode that he's like not trusting of the Fire Nation. Like that's a
Yeah,
like, or like at
he's
least of
already made
Admiral.
that decision.
Yeah, like he's already like trying to get the upper hand or undermine Zhao at the very least, right? Like he
Hmm.
very much is like, so we get that rivalry throughout the series between Zuko and Zhao, and so like you know you kind of lose that a little bit in the live action because he's not, you don't see him doing that prior to Zhao being like the Avatar's mine
Hmm.
now, like get
Yeah,
him. Like
give him
um
over.
yeah, which is cool. They do though in the live action still make note of the Yu Yan archers. Like I remember them practicing and stuff, and
Yes,
like
they do
seeing
have
them.
them. They do have them in
Yeah,
that.
which is cool.
Yeah, you can't not have them in that.
Yeah, they're awesome. But that's when I think I can't remember which episode it was, but I mentioned Iroh's top knot. Is that that might have been a different thing, but I remember Archer's being in the tree and shooting his top knot off, and I don't. I know we've talked about that already
Oh,
though. Is
oh,
there a site? Was that the Earth?
is that Jet?
Yeah, that
No, is that Jet?
no, it wasn't Jet. It
No.
was the other Earth.
Oh,
Why did they do so
I
many
know what you're
things so
talking
many
about. I know what you're
times?
talking about. Yeah, but that was
But
used before. I think that bit was
yeah,
definitely used before.
um, yeah. So I mean, it's fine. Like having them show up is cool, and I like that they still have an emphasis on them. We get June a little bit early and like a little bit
Yeah.
differently. It's because they then axe like they don't do the fortune teller episode, which we'll talk about next week. But like
Hmm.
they don't do any of that stuff, which is when she comes in the animated series. Um,
They leave that out.
yeah, and so like it makes sense that the way that they incorporate in
The way they
her in here. I'm like, okay, that tracks. Like the fact that she
it kind of
gets to
fits.
Aang, and like that's how they get to Zuko, and then Zhao is like, no, he's mine now. Um, so yeah, I mean, like it all gels sort of, but
It
I'm
like
like,
it works, but it's that thing with the live action. I think we keep going back. We're like, it works, but it's just not as
it,
good as the other way. We've seen it done
yeah,
really well, and so
yeah,
seeing it another way that it does work, but it's just not as good.
I can. It's the thing where like I can see how they got there, and why it fits based on all of the other decisions that they made. But it makes me go to the top and be like, well, why'd you make this decision?
Then
No,
why'd you
like
do
you could
this
have just,
though?
yeah, because
Yeah.
like by doing this here, it makes it to where you then have to do this here, and so on, and it just kind of is a
It
trickle
feels
down.
also it just feels forced.
Yeah,
Everything feels all mushed together and forced, and they're like, "Oh, we
it's
can have her appear in here even though she doesn't have to be."
yeah.
It's like,
I mean,
then
she's great
why
though.
do it at
I
all?
love June a
Yes, the
lot.
actress is great.
Yeah,
She's
both
very cool,
versions.
which we will talk about her in the next episode. Or no,
Yes.
2 episodes. We talk about she comes in the next
No one. It's
the
next
week
week.
after next week. No, Bato
Oh,
of
that
the Water Tribe.
Bato's the last
Next
one.
week is Fortune Teller.
Yeah, that's what. That's when. Oh, you're right.
No,
Sorry.
thank
I
you.
know.
Again,
Sorry,
Alex
my
does
bad. My bad.
not
That
reading.
is in 2 weeks. My bad. Okay. No, yeah, but she's great. I mean, both the animation and live action version of June,
Are
amazing.
very awesome, kick ass, yeah.
Yeah, love to see her. But yeah,
But
it's
Blue
weird.
Spirit, I did like the Blue Spirit action in the live action.
Yeah.
The choreography
Uh-huh.
was really well
It's
done.
good.
I thought it was fun. I think that's honestly when they first pitched it, this is what they had in their minds. This scene alone, they were like, okay, I know what to do with this. I
Hmm.
think everything else they just wanted to get to this point and film this. That's what it felt like to me. This is so when
Yeah.
they first started, they're like, okay, I know what we're gonna do for this at least. So let's build up to them
Hmm.
fighting together. And it's Aang blowing the wind and all the soldiers out of the wall, and him
Yeah.
and Zuko fighting together, or the
I
blue
mean,
spirit.
it's a great visual. Like,
Yeah.
it's cool. I also feel it's been a little bit since I watched the live action at this point,
Hmm.
but I can't remember how obviously they play that being Zuko, like whether or not, because I know it's obviously a reveal for
Mm.
Aang by the end, right? But like,
Yeah.
I don't remember how much they like disguise that from the audience, whether or not, because I feel like
I wonder
because I feel like they know that most of their audience is going to know going
knows.
in that that's
Yeah.
Zuko. Like it's it's just one of those things where I can't remember that because it's been a little bit, and it's also probably it's probably hard to separate um that from like the fact that I know that it's Zuko like while watching
Yeah.
going in and like seeing that as the first time.
I think they still covered it up. Um,
Because I mean, it would make sense
I
for them
don't know.
to, because like there's
Yeah.
probably going to be a decent amount of the viewership that is not familiar with the animated series, obviously, because like this is
Hmm.
gonna, because unfortunately, I think
But
we've
like,
talked about this before.
yeah,
A lot of people are like, animation isn't a real show.
viable medium. Yeah.
Yeah, which is so dumb. Like,
Stupid.
stop being a kid. Like, come on. Like,
Grow up. Grow up and watch
yeah,
animation. Grow up and watch
grow up and watch the
cartoons.
kids show. Come on, man. Like, um, yeah, it's
I
super
mean, I
interesting.
think they kept it the same because whether or not you know, it's still a good reveal. Like,
Yeah, that's true. That's
hmm
very true.
um, but I do find it interesting too that this episode is it's the only
Live action
other
one.
one that's the only other the live action episode. It's the only other one with the original creators are still credited. I think
Hmm.
it's along with also the pilot.
Yeah,
So I wonder if most of that is kept the same because they were like, it works. Don't Why
probably.
do you don't need to fix it if it's not broken. So I wonder if they kept it mostly the same. They kept that reveal. I don't think they would show that it's Zuko beforehand.
Yeah,
Um, I think we like this episode the most because the original creators are still credited. There's still some of their magic left over
probably.
on it.
Yeah,
Gotta be
even
honest.
I mean, yeah, that is true. This is probably aside from the Co stuff, which is just weird, which we've talked about already. that because we talked about that during the Spirit World stuff.
Yeah.
Like aside from all of the whatever going on here and the Roku stuff being different here
Being
too.
back.
Yeah, like I do because this is where we get we've been saying the Blue Spirit stuff is basically as close to a 1-to-1 as you're gonna get in this kind of
In
thing.
this series, yeah.
Yeah, so like that's good, and then also the 41st Division like Revelation stuff is fantastic, and like
That's new. That definitely feels like a
it's good. It's a
original
smart
creator
Yeah,
choice,
it's a smart change,
if I
and so
had to
like that
guess.
stuff's good. Zuko's backstory stuff is good
Hmm.
for the most part. We talked at length about our kind of
Yeah.
qualms with how
That's
they.
pretty much the same, yeah, except for Zuko fighting back, which doesn't make sense.
Well, check out our previous episodes if you
Check
want
out
to
our
hear whole
previous
rants
episode
about
about
that.
that. Yeah.
um, yeah, so I mean it's
But what I
good.
didn't like about this episode was the Zuko and Aang conversation at the end.
Mhm.
Because
Don't
what I
even
love, if
can't lie.
oh, it's not memorable. It's just a bunch of talking. It's it's literally just it's so much dialogue that I'm like, I don't even know what you're saying anymore.
Yeah,
Because what I love with the animation at the end of it, it's just Aang. Aang says a little paragraph.
there's
Zuko
like two
says
sentences. Yeah,
nothing. He says two sentences. He leaves. Like, Zuko fights back, and with nothing being said, he like you see
which
everything in his
yeah,
face.
which
You
says a lot.
get everything.
Sometimes
Zuko says
less is more.
nothing, and oh my god, if I could just slam that into the live action creators' heads, that less is
Just the less
more.
is more. Yeah, because doesn't I'm pretty sure this episode also ends with a voiceover and the live action
Oh
one
my god,
of
it
like
does.
Iroh being like, "Hey, audience, in case you didn't watch the episode, this is what
This
you
is what you just watched.
this is the
You
moral of the
you
story."
morons. Hey, Aspect listener. Enjoying the show?
Then be sure to subscribe here on The Aspect so you never miss an episode.
And check out more episodes and clips on our playlist here.
Thanks so much for watching, and
Lameo Hot Man.